Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm Shadi Curry. I am your host, and I am the only one here on this episode today. I wanted to share my thoughts around being in control of your dating journey. And this is a little bit of a sensitive topic. I don't think I talk about it a lot in my public episodes. I have an episode way back called Taking 100% Responsibility. So it's a similar concept. I do delve into it deeply in my one-on-one coaching and in my group coaching because I can introduce the topic as an individual application to the woman that I am coaching in that moment. Taking 100% responsibility, the concept can be presented in ways that are shaming to people because there are ways that women are treated on the apps. There is conditioning and programming and socialization. There is cultural narratives. There are power imbalances that impact women in the dating world. There just are. There are attitudes that impact women of color in the dating world. There are attitudes that impact women who do not conform with the current beauty standards. So if you're a plus sized woman, or if you are someone who is like myself, of another culture, you have an accent, or you're neurodiverse. Like there are just all kinds of attitudes and prejudices that can come into play when you are dating. And so I always hesitate to talk about, you're in control and you should take 100% responsibility and your experience is 100%, up to you. It is, and it also isn't. But there are ways in which it is important to know that you are in control of your dating experience. Now, you're not in control of attitudes that other people are going to have. Other people will still have attitudes. Other people may be racist, prejudiced. Other people may, slide in your messages on the apps and tell you that you should go lose weight before you date, things like that. Now, and those are not in your control. Those are wrong. That should not be happening. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about things that other people do that impact you in that way. When I talk about taking responsibility, I'm not talking about taking responsibility for how other people are showing up on the apps, even if those things impact you. I'm talking about the overall dating experience. So not the incidental dating experience, not one incident or even a series of incidents, but an approach. Sort of your approach to dating is within your control. And your approach to dating does impact your results. When I'm working with my clients, a lot of the work that I do is presenting my process. And what my process has in place is certain principles, some philosophies, a lot of psychology that helps them adjust their approach. A lot of what I do is debunking beliefs that my clients have that are making their approach to dating not work. And I will give you a few examples from clients that I have worked with in this episode. So when I say taking 100% responsibility for your journey, I don't mean that what other people are doing is your fault. That is not your fault. But your overall experience can be within your control if you learn how. And there are certain experiences that are happening that are within your control. And so I'll give an example. So this is a recent example with one of my one-on-one clients who is currently having the best time on the apps. We actually met yesterday, and she will recognize herself in this story. And she's had about 15 first dates in the few months that we've been working together. However, prior to that, very early on, she had an experience where there was someone who was just really creepy and really weird, that she was having conversations with, on the apps. And when that happened, it really shook her up because she was like, oh my gosh, I feel like this person is just a really horrid person. I'm not even, I feel like he might look me up on the internet. There were just things that were happening and things that he was saying that made her feel really concerned about him. Now, because we were working one-on-one, we were able to have a conversation that was really tough, but that helped her turn her entire dating experience around. She was not responsible for the things that this person said, and she was not responsible for how he was approaching her and approaching the world. However, because we were working one-on-one, we were able to say, okay, this person is not doing the right thing, not saying the right thing, but how could you have seen this earlier? How could you have followed the process in a way that could have prevented being on the phone with this person? And that little fix for her has made all the difference. Like, she is so close to meeting someone who is a match for her that we're like both giddy with excitement, just because every date since then, and she's had, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 dates since that person, has just been like closer and closer and closer to what she's looking for. She's getting warmer and warmer because she made that single shift. And that shift isn't something that I can teach. I can't say, hey, everyone, go make this shift in your dating process and it's going to fix it for you, because everyone's blind spots are different. Everyone's, the thing that we're not seeing, the emotional imprint that you have, the fallacy that you are, walking with, the, what do we call them? The bias that's, affecting your journey could be different from everyone else. Sometimes for some people, it's availability bias, where it's like, oh, these are the only people in my environment. So that's what you end up seeing everywhere. So whatever the blind spot is going to be different for each person. And pointing out our thinking errors, our thought errors, our biases can feel very painful, right? Because, we're smart, we're intelligent, we've achieved so much in all of these areas of our lives. Thinking that somehow we're doing dating wrong can trigger shame. Like, that is something that I have seen over and over and over again. So I always hesitate to say, hey, you're doing it wrong. And if you would just be smarter and do better, it would fix everything, because that's the message we get anyway. Like, the world is already giving women that message that we're doing it wrong and something wrong with us. We're too needy, we're too picky, we're too this, we're too that. And so I'm always trying to be sensitive to not say, hey, you're doing it wrong. And if you would only do it differently, you would meet someone, because it's not that simple. It's really an individual journey. However, within that individual journey, if the result isn't happening for you, and if you have in a sense tried everything and tried lots of things, then chances are there are little pieces of your journey that are not working that you can't see, right? There are parts of the journey that you are not taking responsibility for. You might not be able to take responsibility for them because you can't see them yet. And so this is where coaching and feedback and having eyes on your journey can be really, really useful. So the first thing I would say, if you want to take 100% responsibility, is to make sure you're doing it from a place of fully loving yourself, fully backing yourself up, believing that this is not a you problem. There is nothing wrong with you. You are amazing. You are lovable. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of having someone mirror back to you that you're worthy. You're worthy of this goal of having a partner and having a companion. Okay, you have to start there. You have to start with compassion for yourself, with 100% unconditional acceptance for yourself. And if you don't have that yet, right, making sure that you're aware, okay, I have a tendency to slide into self-pity and beating myself up and telling myself I'm doing it wrong when something isn't happening that I want. Start there. Like, okay, do I fully accept myself? Or at least am I aware if I slide out of that? when you're looking at your dating journey, I'm like, okay, I've been on the apps for 6 months and I haven't met anyone good. This doesn't mean there's something wrong with me. It means there's a blind spot in my dating journey. Like, I really want you to sit and phrase it that way. I have actually a couple of clients who I'm currently working with who, they were on the apps and they weren't getting any messages back. Like, they were doing all the things that are in my program. They were, swiping according to, the guidelines that I gave them, profile, all those things were in place, but they weren't getting any messages back from the kinds of people that they wanted. And, I'm so glad that they were in a program with me, because the typical thought and the typical assumption in that situation is that, oh yeah, I'm only attracting the bad guys. Nobody wants me, blah, 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 etc. But we were able to sit down and say, okay, what's going on here? And we looked at it. And for one of them, the issue was that the city she lived in was just had so many people. Like, the numbers was so high. She lived in a city with millions and millions of people that her profile, even though it was a great profile, just wasn't rising to the surface. It just wasn't rising to the surface, even though it was an amazing profile. And so we made changes to her profile, and we had to choose, I think the approach we took was like, hey, you need to tell a certain story. And the story that she was telling in the text of her summary, her photos were not reflecting the summary. And so our guess was that people were looking at her photos and they didn't tell the story that her profile did. And because of the sheer numbers, people weren't reading her profile. Like, in a smaller city, people might take the time to read a profile. So we made those changes, and within a week, maybe 10 days, started seeing messages coming back. And we're like, oh, okay, well then let's dial that up a notch again. And so that's sort of an example of taking responsibility. The first thing in that situation was, hey, it's not you, and I kept repeating that to her over and over and over again. As we worked through this, I was like, it is not you. I promise you, it's not you. We don't know what this issue is yet, but it is not you, because she is amazing. And I know if you're listening to this podcast, then you're amazing too, right? And that's, I think, another thing that, like, really we have to start reflecting to each other as women, that, like, listen, you're good, right? Reflecting to each other, like, don't just focus on the one thing that in your life that you haven't done perfectly, right? Like, look at all of your accomplishments. Look at all of the things that you have brought to this world. Look at all of the people that you've helped, and bring that to the table when you're reflecting on your journey and looking at what's working and what's not working. Don't just look at, well, if I were a better person, if I were cuter, if I were skinnier, if I were whatever. No, you already are everything that you need to be to deserve love, which is a human, right? You're a good human. You deserve love. And so that was another example of taking 100% responsibility. It didn't mean that she beat herself up for not attracting, quote unquote, attracting the good guys. It meant we sat and looked at the process. We assumed she was okay as a person and said, what are the numbers? Like, what's happening on the apps? What's happening when you're swiping? What's happening with your photos? What's happening with your profile? And have we told the story that we need to tell in order for you to get the results that you want? So I really want to emphasize in this sort of riff that I'm doing that, like, it's your dating journey really is in your hands. It really is something that you can practically fix. But to do it, you first have to fully accept yourself, be in unconditional acceptance before you look at the journey. And then when you start to look at it, stay in the space of its numbers. Stay in the space of its facts. Assume that this process is working for you, and there's just a piece of it or a few pieces of it that you need to fix. There's just something that you're doing, a fallacy that you believe. There's just a myth that you are working with, a tip from the internet that you're working with that isn't applicable to you or isn't applicable to your journey. And then become curious and find out what it is. So unconditionally accept yourself. And then second, become curious. What could the fix be? What is the one thing I need to fix? What is the one thing I need to change? Where could I make my process better? Where could I customize things that to make them work better for me? So maybe and for my clients who are in my group program, not all of them are doing things exactly the same way. Like they all have the same process. They all have my philosophy, but they don't all apply the pieces of it the same way because they live in different places. They are all looking for different types of men. They all have different challenges, right? So my group is very diverse. We have women from all races, different professions. And for each of them, their experience on the apps will be impacted by, unfortunately, who they are, who they're looking for. It's unfortunate that women of color on the apps just have, really difficult experiences. And we always bring that into their application of the process. We always talk about it. So in the group, I will call it out. I'll be like, listen, this is your situation. And so you may have to do these things in order to stand out in your area or in order to repel this you have to repel this extra set of men, right? Everyone is repelling, I don't want these guys. I don't want to see these guys in my feed. And so we do the work to build that in. And then we build in the particular experiences that each woman is having into her process. So get curious about who you are, where you are, what you're looking for, and how those factors will impact how you need to show up if you're on a dating app, or where you need to go if you're dating in person, who you need to be talking to about introductions or social events that you need to go to in order to make your dating process, to accelerate your dating process, to move faster, to meet more of the kinds of people that you are looking for. So 1, unconditionally accept yourself. 2, get curious about what might actually be happening. The third thing you want to do is implement. You want to do the thing. You want to make the changes. This is going to require effort. I always chuckle at how people think that dating shouldn't require effort. That if dating feels hard, or if they're having to put in effort, if they're having to do research, if they're having to get up 2 or 3 times a week and go somewhere, if it feels hard, if it feels like work sometimes, that somehow they're doing it wrong. And I'm like, why? Why do you think that? Right? We've watched way too many movies, read way too many romance novels where everything is just all about the feelings. And, you're either in love or you're in heartbreak, but there's no actual physical work happening in the dating journey. That is not true. It is work. And, I think it's appropriate that dating is some work, because the 3 big parts of anyone's life will be your relationships, your work, the work you put out into the world / your money or whatever, and then your health. And these 3 big, areas that I think all of us want to thrive in. We want those 3 areas of our lives to be good, to be sorted. All require effort. We all know that going to work requires effort. Running a business requires effort. Taking a certification or an advanced degree all requires effort. We all know that working on our health requires effort. You got to figure out the meal plan and buy the ingredients and cook the food or pay for someone to do it. You got to go to the gym or take a walk around your neighborhood, run, go to spin class, go to yoga. And you don't just do it once. You do it over and over and over again forever. Why do we accept that these big areas of our lives where we want to thrive and we want to be successful will require effort, but then when it comes to dating and choosing a partner, choosing that person who is going to be the one person that is going to share your life and travel with you and build an empire with you, go on family vacations, you're going to live life with that. The journey to that person would not require effort. When you get on the apps and it's 5 weird guys in a row messaged me and now I'm done. That's not how it works. In order to have an amazing experience dating, you have to craft that experience. You got to craft it. You have to sit and say, what does this actually look like? How is this supposed to work? And the dating apps, of course, have made that, feel really like, oh yeah, you're supposed to just be able to go on there and swipe. But I don't really blame the dating apps for that attitude, because that's the attitude we had when in our, teen years. You were just supposed to, some guy was just supposed to ask you out, and then he would be your boyfriend, and that would be it. In our 20s, it was the same thing. It was like, okay, yes, you just meet a good guy and then you marry him and you settle down. There's just always this breezy way that we talk about dating, like it's just supposed to happen. You shouldn't have to put in effort. It shouldn't feel like work. It shouldn't require thinking and crafting a process. It shouldn't require strategy or optimization, or I don't know. Like, underlying this process is work. Anything good and amazing, any masterpiece you're going to create in your life is going to require putting in some work. Do you wonder exactly how divorced women just like you are meeting eligible men who want a real relationship and a commitment? They're doing it by dating with their core values. Your core values are the GPS that lead you to the partner you've been looking for. When you use your core values on dating apps, text messages, and at social events, you will easily connect with your true match partner without chasing, settling, or wasting time with non-committal men. I have taught exactly how to do this in the 2-hour Core Values Dating Blueprint course available on my website, shadecurry.com/dating. That's SADECURRY.com/dating. You will learn exactly how to identify your core values and use them on your dating profile, how to ask the right questions via text, and how to tell the right stories on dates so that you attract the right people and repel those who aren't right for you. If you're ready to meet your true match, hop over to shadecurry.com/dating or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode. Now, ideally, we don't want this work to be backbreaking work. We don't want this work to feel frustrating and defeating. We don't want this work to be unproductive in ways that like you're just doing the work and you're just grinding on the apps and you're just grinding in dating for like years and years and years. No, we don't want that to happen, right? Often I talk to people about how, and if you've listened to a lot of my podcast episodes, guest episodes, you've heard this, where we talk about the work of being in a healthy relationship, because marriage is work, partnership is work. And when you're in a healthy relationship, it's still work, right? You still have to work at communicating with your partner. You have to resolve conflict. You will have ruptures, and you want to be able to repair those ruptures. You have to do the work of talking to each other about how are we going to do the chores, how are we going to split this up, how are we going to create the relationship that we want. So there is work even in a healthy relationship, but that work is different from the work of living with an abusive partner, because that is like crazy work. That is unproductive work. No matter how much effort you put into that kind of a relationship, often you will find that like it never goes anywhere. It's like a black hole, just sucks up all of your work, all of your ideas, all of your solutions, and you never arrive at the place of achieving a nourishing relationship if you're with someone who is abusive or toxic or who does not put in their own contribution to the relationship. So it's the same way with dating. We don't want you to just be on the apps and just grinding away, weeding through thousands of awful profiles. That's not the point. The point is to put your effort into a process that is productive, into a way of dating that does give you a series of really, really good men to date. And really the client I talked about at the earlier part of this episode, that was really what happened for her, is that when she started out, she was having some good dates, and then she had a few that were like, oh my God, these guys are really, really bad. And at first she felt like she was doing something wrong. Like the implication was that she was doing something wrong. And that really triggered, some challenging emotions for her. And, we were able to slow things down. Like a lot of my coaching calls would be like, okay, we need to pause in this moment. You did this or you said this. What was going on there? And we go deeper so that we can hit the root cause and shift it forever. So for her, we were like, okay, this guy, you ended up having multiple conversations with this guy. What happened here? And we dug deep and realized that, okay, when she was swiping and she was doing her swiping great, really according to all the guidelines that I have for my clients, we have a funnel. I give them a funnel. I'm like, okay, when you're at this stage, this is what you swipe on. At this stage, you qualify them here. And so she was doing all of that, but she had this little blind spot where if a guy was very attractive, if he was like her type, she would slide out of the guidelines that we had agreed on and give that guy more chances. So even though this guy was showing signs of being not a good guy, she was sort of giving him more chances because of how attractive he was, right? So she was doing the work, but because we had these guardrails in place for saying, okay, when we're doing the work, we're not just allowing all kinds of weirdo guys to be in our queue. We have this process for eliminating them and eliminating them from even coming in. When she applied that, and that was effort, when she applied, that guideline over and over again, that work was productive, right? So when she's swiping and she's checking her list and checking her guidelines and being like, okay, swipe on this guy, don't swipe on that guy, swipe on this guy, send this message, send that message. That is effort, right? Get up and go and meet 2 or 3 people every week. That is a lot of effort. However, because she has my process for dating, that effort is productive for her. And so I never want to give the impression that dating isn't work, or that if dating feels challenging for you, that there's something wrong with the investment of effort and time and money, paying for the apps or going to an event or paying for a speed dating event. I never want to make you feel like that investment is wrong, like you're wrong for having had to make that investment. However, my goal is to help you make the investment in ways that are actually productive, in ways that actually get you to the end goal of meeting your partner in less than a year. Like I 100% believe that anyone can meet someone who is right for them in less than a year. Women who work with me typically will meet someone within 4 to 6 months. Like that's just I don't know if that's the average, but that's the average time. If there are no extra variables that we have to work with, it's usually right around 4 months for the people who are moving the fastest, right around 6 months for those who are moving at more of the regular pace for my clients. And so I know anyone can meet someone in a year, right? But the effort is going to be required. So again, just going over how to take 100% responsibility for your dating journey, for your dating experience. 1, it's not you. Unconditionally accept yourself. 2, get curious about what's really happening. Is it the numbers? Is it your area? Is it something in your profile? Is it the way you are engaging men? Are you not qualifying them the way you need to qualify them? And you know what's interesting? Even my clients would be like, well, I'm qualifying them. And I'll be like, okay, screen share your app for me. Let me see what you're telling these guys. And it's amazing how I will go through their messages and say, okay, so here, you didn't ask him about his work. Like, what was going on there? Why didn't you simply ask the qualifying question and then ask some follow-up questions there? And they will usually have an answer. Well, I thought because he said this. And I'm like, no, honey, you got to ask the qualifying questions. You got to apply the process over and over again. Like, you got to follow the process, And so that is always amusing to me where, people will tell me well, this part didn't work. I'm like, yeah, but did you apply it exactly the way you were supposed to? So, unconditionally accept yourself. Get curious about where the challenge might be. If there's nothing wrong with you, which we know there isn't, honey, you're amazing, then implement what you come up with when you are troubleshooting. I always talk about the way my process is like, it's like a garden hose. If it's all kinked up in different places, then the water is just not going to flow at the other end. And so you got to go to each kink, unkink that garden hose at every point, figure out what's happening at every part of your funnel. And that funnel is for good men. So if the hose is still spitting out all the guys that, you don't want, then something is wrong along the way. You got to pause and unkink each one, because there are good men in the world. There are plenty of good men who are looking for a relationship, who are looking for a partner, who want marriage. They really are out there. And the reason they're out there is because every once in a while you're like, oh yeah, this person's getting married. This person met someone. It's like, it's still happening, right? I talked to a client recently, and we were troubleshooting her process. She was feeling kind of down about it. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And we were, putting things back in place and doing a reset. And she said, I just really feel like all the guys who meet this particular criteria in my area, like, in my friend group and in my network, like we know all of them. We've known all of them. And, they just aren't anymore. And I said, and yet you have a friend who recently announced that she was getting married again. So obviously you didn't know all of them. Right? There was one out there that you all thought you knew, but you really didn't know all of them. Okay. So there are people out there. You're going to continue to hear stories of people meeting someone. It's just going to continue. And that one of those stories can be you if you take a step back and can take 100% responsibility and without shaming yourself, right? If you can say, listen, this is possible for me. I can do this too. And if I'm doing it, quote unquote, doing it wrong, it's not because I'm wrong. It's because there's just something I don't know. There's just a process that I'm not applying. There's just an insight and an understanding of dating. There's an idea that I'm not implementing, and I just need to figure out what that is. Okay. You are not a victim of what's happening on the apps. The apps are not just happening to you. Your dating experience is not just happening to you out of nowhere. And, don't stay in that or be in that, like sort of helpless, passive state where it's like, well, there's nothing that can be done. It's me, where I am, how I show up or whatever. No, that's not true. You might have some extra challenges depending on your situation. However, those challenges can be overcome. Those challenges have been overcome by others. And so if you can take a step and just say, I'm going to take charge of this. I'm going to approach it with unconditional acceptance for myself. I'm going to get curious about what might be going on. And then I'm going to implement. I'm going to put in that effort. And you do that consistently, you will 100% get the result that you want. And if you want support here, which I highly recommend you get support, because especially if it's a blind spot that you haven't seen, support, having someone's eyes on it, working with me to guide you through my process and apply it for you can make such a difference to your experience dating and the speed of you getting to the partner that you want. All right. That's today's episode. Thank you for letting me just kind of like riff off of this idea and try to crystallize it in words, even though, when I know this is going out to thousands of you and, my brain is always like, oh my God, I hope I'm saying it in a way that will resonate with everyone without shaming everyone or trying to make anyone feel like, oh, they're doing it wrong. And that was really my goal today. So I hope I was able to achieve that. Appreciate your time and attention, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. Head over to sadecurry.com to get started. That's SADECURRY.com. I'll see you inside.